Oi, oi, alright, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you, this is Doodle Review. We're here delivering new album reviews to you every day. Most of them are like in a guitar-based rock music sort of vibe, but every couple episodes we mix it up. Today we're in more of a hip-hop mode, looking at the latest from Boldy James and Nicholas Craven. That is Penalty of Leadership. So, I've talked about Boldy James a bunch on this channel. He might actually be the rapper with the most features on Doodle Review just by virtue of the amount of material that he's released. So far, the guy has dropped 12 albums, 5 EPs and 7 mixtapes. At one point, certainly in 2022, it felt like he was dropping something every few months or so. That relentless release schedule was halted last year though, as right at the start of January, James was involved in a horrendous car accident resulting in multiple injuries and significant damage to his neck and spine. Not even this brush with death could really slow the man down though. Boldy's 11th record, Indiana Jones, actually one of my favourites from him, still dropped on time a week later after the accident, and another EP, Prisoner of Circumstance, quietly dropped over the summer. And by the end of the year, James had even returned to the stage, initially at hometown shows and then I believe jumping on a European tour with The Alchemist. It was the 2022 album Killing Nothing with Real Bad Man that turned me onto Boldy's brand of laid back coke raps, but it was the follow-up, the first collaboration with Canadian producer Nicholas Craven, Fair Exchange No Robbery, that sealed the deal. These were gritty Detroit street raps backed by beats that felt like the score to some lost 70s gangster flick. The samples used throughout Fair Exchange were both flawless and timeless. Tracks like Stuck in Traffic were full of sweeping strings punctuated by 70s Superfly wah guitar, and Scrabble became infinitely listenable through its addictive vocal hook pressed up against a warm 70s organ. It all flowed together seamlessly to weave a rich tapestry of Detroit underworld double crosses and alliances. It seems only right then that Boldy's first proper release since the accident, with all new recorded material, should reunite him with the producer responsible for that fan favourite release, Nicholas Craven. So with this instrumental backing, some time on the bench to recharge, creatively speaking, and obviously with a lot of new experiences to speak on, Boldy sounds completely, absolutely on his game, both lyrically and in the energy brought to the mic. James is obviously not one to overexert himself. His tone and delivery always sound like they're coming from a resting heart rate of like 50, 60. Like the words are just there, up front of the dome, easily within reach, so that he never sounds anything less than truly calm. However, in general, you can hear this slight change in his meter when he hits like a real flow state, and on Penalty of Leadership that happens frequently. My favourite from this perspective is the track Murderous Tendencies, a track where Boldy, as a more mature person, laments figures in his life lost to the game but still struggles to rein in his desire for retaliation in moments of conflict or when people cross him to this day. And I saw someone quite rightly point out in the comments on Genius that when he hits this like bar that starts with race car on the track, he just goes and goes and goes and goes into this deep flow, and it just sounds awesome. Despite the recent trauma, thematically this is a Boldy James album, so while there are plenty of references to the accident and the subsequent recovery, it's more from the perspective of how it's barely impacted his game rather than offering any kind of like new layers of sentimentality. Formal Invite touches on notes of bitterness and revenge, while Jack Frost sees James ruminating on how he's like a king in the street but underrated in the rap game. It's actually interesting that Indiana Jones, the record that was already in the can at the time of his accident and released shortly thereafter, probably has the highest proportion of emotive tracks than any other album in the Boldy canon, and way more than this one that was actually produced after this quite life-changing event. Perhaps indicating that the man that came back from the brink is a little harder, a little bit of a harder person than a softer one. The production from Nicholas Craven that I loved, and I think the wider fan base loved from Fair Exchange, is immediately present from the moment you first put on the album. Formal Invite starts with a perfect vocal sample and piano before broadening to include great guitars and strings with drums that capture that perfect 70s soul feel. I think in general there's a slightly heavier use of vocal samples than the duo's prior collaboration, but that's no issue with me, especially when they're as good as they are here. No pun intended, and Speedy Recovery absolutely draw me in with their manipulated, pitched up, sped up samples that offer such catchy hooks behind Boldy's bars. We actually hear a couple of examples of Craven experimenting with some electronic elements within the confines of these organic instrumentals, and it sounds amazing. Jack Frost has this stuttering synth hook that adds so much colour to the track and actually propels what is a fairly sparse beat forward in the best possible way, while Evil Genius includes some mournful atmospheric backing synth that imbues the track with just the right amount of sensitivity. These are quite isolated uses of electronics, and while I recognise it's difficult to balance, to try and balance like new things when there's such an established sound that works so well, I think these two tracks absolutely prove that whatever Craven cooks up within this collision of old school samples and analog synthesis going forward, it's going to sound good. It would have been nice to hear more of it on this record, but what we have is great. I did notice a couple of production oddities, weird things across the record that I found a little distracting. I feel like Boldy's vocal is perhaps mixed just a hair too loudly at certain points, and while there are sample crackles everywhere on the album, it's the nature of the beast. On the track No Pun Intended, there's some particularly high-end crackle in the right channel that it kept distracting me. My only other critique is one I bring up a lot on Boldy albums, and that is just it would be great to have maybe a bit more dynamism in the track listing with some more features. Indiana Jones remains the best Boldy album for this, offering many different collaborators to create a more vibrant and tonally interesting record. I think the one feature we get here from Double D proves that having someone for the central artist to bounce off only makes things more interesting. Overall, this is another fantastic Boldy James album. It doesn't quite reach the heights of Fair Exchange for me, but it's not far off. It's a 7.2 for me. Okay, so check this out if you liked, or if you like this, check out Kotoya Oyalotko. We're still working on that abbreviation, but so there are some obvious ones. A couple from Boldy's back catalogue, Fair Exchange, No Robbery, of course. Also give Prisoner of Circumstance a look. It was produced by Chan Hayes rather than Craven, but leans equally on the old school soul samples. And in terms of rappers with Boldy's laid back delivery, maybe if you don't know already, check out Mike, and particularly his collaboration with Wiki and the Alchemist from last year. That would be a good one, like stylistically after this record. You know, both rappers are more in that kind of stoner reflective world rather than street life, but vibe wise you might find some similarities. Pusha T is an obvious one in terms of lyrical content. From a production standpoint, definitely then go and take a look at some real Bad Man records like the collabs with Blue or Young Morpheus. So yeah, either way, if you're into this Boldy album and haven't heard those albums, check them out. Or if you've heard these albums and like them, it's more cause to give this one a look. Some of my reviews on those you can find in the description below this floating head. But yeah, other than that, let's knock it on the head. That's what I think about this record. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel in the comments and why you're messing about with that, all those clicks and taps in that whole region of the screen. Hit the subscribe button, I'm sure it's knocking about down there somewhere. Subscribe, share some thoughts, show some love, or just hurl some abuse in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers mate, bye.